Let's return to our top story, the attacks in Sri Lanka, which we know have killed 207 people and left more than 450 injured. A senior Sri Lankan official says at least 2 of the explosions appear to have been caused by suicide bombers. 7 arrests have been made after police raided a house in the capital, Colombo, shortly after the attacks. Well, to discuss what's been going on and the security services response, I'm joined by the international security and risk consultant, Olivier Guitta. Thanks for coming in today. Sri Lanka is used to violence, or has been many years ago with the insurgency, the Tamil Tigers, but they were crushed. I mean, has there ever been such a series of coordinated attacks such as these?
No, I mean, if you think about it, Sri Lanka has been extremely quiet since 2009, since the end of the civil war with the Tamil Tigers, and also it was not really on the radar of a lot of security people as a place of potential terrorism. As you mentioned, the scale of those attacks are mind-boggling. I mean, we're thinking about Mumbai or the attack in Bali in terms of the number of people that died and how much it was coordinated and how long it was planned.
So, indeed, I want to talk about that. Must have been planned for a long time, this.
Yes, very much so. I mean, 8 attacks, mostly on hotels and churches, have been planned for a long while, and the fact that it happened on Easter is extremely concrete when it comes to the jihadist narrative that wanted to strike at Christians on Easter.
Yeah, clearly timed for maximum destruction on this holiest of days.
Yes. Not only that, I mean, the fact that they had a double-thronged kind of target, which was expats, foreigners and tourists, by striking at high-end hotels and local Christian, is for them their modus operandi to basically try to cripple the economy of Sri Lanka.
And as you mentioned there, Sri Lanka is off the radar. You know, people wouldn't necessarily have assumed anything like this would happen in such a country.
Yes, but unfortunately we've seen since the defeat of Islamic State a lot of foreign fighters moving into Southeast Asia. We had those attacks in Indonesia, and a lot of the reports that we were seeing is that Philippines, Malaysia, Sri Lanka were also possible targets, and we'll see in the next few hours if Islamic State claims responsibility for this attack.
Do you think that's a strong possibility?
Very strong possibility, because you need an extremely sophisticated network and group to be behind this.
They may claim they've done it shortly. It follows a pattern, though, doesn't it, these attacks, and how they have done bombings and shootings, coordinated attacks in the past? Yes.
I would point out that there's a change, if you will, in the modus operandi. Is one of the suicide bomber actually checked into the hotel and spent the night. Usually in attacks on hotels, they just come in and blow themselves up. Was that a reason for them to try to avert security services or avert the security at the entrance of the hotel? This will have to be seen. But Sri Lanka counterterrorism forces are extremely good because, as you mentioned, of the history of the country.
So what will they be doing now? What's their next step, the counter-terrorism forces?
So they've arrested 8 people as of now. We don't know if it's just, a knee-jerk reaction or if it's actually intel. What we know is that there were, 10 days ago, extremely clear warnings of suicide bombing attacks, potentially against churches and against the Indian High Commission. So they had intel on potential targets. Coming from, obviously, outside security services, so I suspect that they will look at this intel extremely closely and look at the different networks that possibly have been roaming inside the country.
If they had this intelligence, does this suggest that wasn't acted upon then because of what we've seen today?
Yes and no, because it's extremely difficult. I mean, this kind of intelligence arrives on the desk of security services almost on a daily basis. I mean, to make sure that this is actionable intelligence is very difficult. I mean, if you don't have someone in the network to tell you this is going to happen this day with this guy, it's extremely difficult. And also, remember, if it was suicide bombers, how do you stop them ahead of time?
But from what we've learned and your assessment so far, this is not a homegrown attack, it's nothing from inside the country?
It could be a mix, if you will, of a local radical Islamic group with Islamic State. But what we've seen in the past is that the local groups are not as sophisticated to pull off an attack like this that must have taken a month or even a year.
All right, well, we'll obviously work out what happens in the hours and days to come. Many thanks indeed, Olivier Guitta, for coming in today.